Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Sarah Manasreh. I am the clarinet and music theory professor at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Etude for bass clarinet for the WSMA Honor Band auditions for 2021. So there are a lot of things about this particular etude that can make it really challenging to try to get started on. The first one is finding a tempo that really works for this piece. And going with the tempo, finding places to breathe and how to phrase this. There are not a lot of phrase markings, there's not a lot of dynamics given, and it's just a lot of eighth notes. So trying to figure out how to shape something like this and keep yourself from hyperventilating and passing out from not being able to take enough air. So the first thing that I think about when I'm thinking about how to get through a piece is the tempo. What makes sense for this? So the tempo is marked allegro. I don't believe that you need to be going super fast. I think that the character of this piece is quite playful. And so if you go too fast, it loses that character. And then it also, one of the ways that we work breathing in is to be able to kind of pull and push with the tempo at the ends and beginnings of phrases, so we can really make our breathing musical rather than just having to stop and take a breath. So let's talk just briefly about tempo. Like I said before, if you go too fast, I think that it causes some problems. The opening of this is really kind of sweet and playful, so I'll play the tempo that I picked for it. And in this case, it's kind of a slow one, so it is fairly allegro in the quarter note. I think if you go too fast, it can sound too crunched up. And it just sounds too rushed. So while that is impressive with your fingers, remember that the most important thing is, are you selling the music to your audience? Is it pleasant to listen to? And is it musical? So musicality, I think, is the number one thing that we can use toward advantage in an audition. Obviously, we want to be accurate, but if we're musical, it really sets us apart, okay? So let's talk a little bit about breathing. So once we've picked our tempo, somewhere around where you're feeling it in kind of a very slow circled 1, or you're feeling it in a quick 3, we need to talk about breathing. So in the beginning, up until the second ending, most of the phrases are grouped in groups of 4. I have picked a few places to breathe in this that I think would be helpful. If you can make it the first 8 bars, I highly suggest you do that. If you need to breathe before that, I would suggest doing it after the 4th bar. Okay, so I'll show you where exactly my first breath is, and I'll tell you exactly why I take it there, but let me demonstrate. I take a breath after that D. So I know it's not at the bar line, but the reason why is I think the next C actually belongs to the next phrase. And all the way throughout this etude, there are times where you'll have to decide, do I want to take a breath on the bar line, or does the phrase actually start somewhere in the middle of the bar? The reason why I think that's a pickup note is if you look at the pickup to 17, it does the same thing. There's an 8th note there. Okay, so that pickup, I think, is really, really smart to show the audience that there is a pickup there. So I do take, in bar 8, I do take a breath after the D. I split that slur up. And that is completely legal if you can sell it. If you're selling something musically, then it's correct, okay? So you can split these slurs up if you need to. The other thing that I want to talk about in this opening phrase, and really it applies to the rest of the piece, is the dynamics. So the easy thing to do on bass clarinet is either play all too loud or all too soft. And the other challenge is that there's really not a lot of dynamics in here. So I use the idea is, how are we repeating melodic material, and is it higher or lower, and should we play it the same, louder, or softer? So I'll give you an example again in the opening phrase. So I start nice and soft, though it is still supportive. You really don't want to play too wimpy on the bass clarinet like this. Bass clarinet is one of the coolest instruments out there. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. So you want to make sure that you can be heard. Don't play too wimpy on this, okay? So your piano maybe should be a mezzo piano, okay? So we want to start a piano. So we have this melodic material. The next measure, it repeats itself. Usually when I have to repeat myself, I'm getting a little bit more frustrated. Maybe not yelling, but maybe I say, hey, can you stop that? Hey, can you stop that? So even though it's not marked, I'm using the melodic material to tell me that I need to start crescendoing. Okay, so it sounds like this. All right, and we crescendo all the way up to the high G, which is our highest note of the phrase. That's not how it always works, but in this case, it works quite nicely. So you're playing, you start at piano, and then maybe a piano plus. Remember, you don't have to, when you're crescendoing, you don't have to jump to the next dynamic right away. There are half dynamics. There's a piano 0.2 and a piano 0.4. So it's just a little bit more smooth to think about the melodic material repeating itself. You're going to get a little louder, okay? Then we have the next phrase in starting in bar 5. It's the same kind of melodic material, but it is higher. So we start the piece here. And the next one we are here. All right, and that lends itself to being a little bit more intense, I think. So I think we can up the dynamics a little bit. I think there should be the whole phrase should just be a little bit louder. So again, I'll play it all the way through. I want you to listen to where I start and how I crescendo, and then how I start the next phrase, because it is the same melodic material, but it is more intense, okay? Now I use my pickup and we begin right back at the same place. So now we're back to piano. And now we're somewhere melodically that it is different than all of the other places. So we're really going to dig in. This is the first time the composer has given us a crescendo, and I think we should keep crescendoing. So starting at bar 9. So really crescendo, I kind of let it blossom. It's not illegal to play louder, even though the last dynamic you saw was a piano. The music is telling us to play more intensely. It's the first time something new is happening. It also goes nice and low. Now, one thing about the second ending, depending on your setup and your mouthpiece, it is kind of hard to slur from that D above the break to the D below without cracking. I do a very light legato tongue on the D. I also slow down just a little bit here, and I really round out the phrase. So if I start in measure 13, you can hear me tongue very lightly that last note. Otherwise, it'll squeak. It just doesn't have the same smoothness. So this is one of those times where if you give it a very light legato tongue, almost hiding it, it actually sounds more slurred than if we actually slurred it. All right, so now let's talk about the weird phrases that are coming next, okay? So here we are, things are a little bit more intense. This is the material at measure 17 is the same material we had from measure 5. So we already know that this is going to be a little bit more intense than our dolce piano beginning, okay? we're going to follow the same phrase shapes, and you're going to see in the fifth bar of this, or measure 18, 19, 20, 21, I'm going to go even louder because it's the same melodic material, but it's even higher. So listen for those things. So here we go. We're going to start louder than we did at the beginning. I like to breathe there. I slow down because we're getting super loud. If you can make it all the way through those 8 bars in one breath, I highly recommend it. However, if your setup and your read is maybe a little hard, I would suggest taking a breath again after the first 4 bars. Okay, so going into measure 25, I slow down so that I can really place the breath musically, but I am crescendoing. So if I start in measure 18, 19, 20, 21, I'm already louder because this is similar melodic material that's repeating higher, okay? And then I'm going to slow down a little bit. Excuse me, I messed up right there. So here again, as I move through, I start measure 25 nice and loud, and I continue all the way through. The next dynamic change is at the Pui Forte, the F sharp. I actually slow down again there, but instead of slowing down into a crescendo, I slow down into a diminuendo. So I'll demonstrate that a little better. Here's at 25, starting loud. All right, and then you can take a nice musical breath, which you can hear in my performance video. Okay. Now, Pui Forte, that just means a little loud. So you might think Pui Forte, it's a lot loud, because Pui Piano means more piano. There's a lot of debate on whether or not it means more or less. However, I think of this as just a little bit more relaxed, maybe a mezzo forte. And this is going to go into one of the more interesting places where I'm going to break up phrases in the middle of a bar. So I'm going to play here. You're going to hear me stop at measure 37 in the middle of the phrase, or in the middle of the measure. Okay, here we go. Starting at 31. And I actually breathe there, okay? The reason why is I think of the next bar as one giant pickup to the next time we play this melodic material. So starting on that G, we're right where I left off. One giant pickup, and here we go. Let me try that one more time. Please bear with me. And I sneak a tiny breath here because, again, the next one is a giant pickup to the next material. I slow down slightly, take a nice big breath. Now, the next 8 bars are a little tricky phrase-wise. They are 4-bar phrases, but I feel like they stop kind of abruptly and restart. So I actually take a breath after each one of these 4 phrases. So at 49, it sounds like this. Or actually, let me get into 49 so you hear the breath. 2 bars before. And breathing wise, that brings us all the way to the end. So let me talk through what I just did. Starting in measure 47, I decrescendoed all the way down to 49, and I took a breath right before 49, slowing down slightly for musicality, okay, to place my breath. Then in 55, sorry, no, I jumped. At 49, I do 4-bar phrases, the next 4 bars plus the next 4 bars, and I actually breathe after each one. They're a little strange, and it's almost like it's like a record scratch. Like you get an idea, oh, I didn't do it right, and then you try again. So right there at 49. And you think, oh, second time I got it right. Now, I think in my performance, I don't take a breath here. You can. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're selling it and it's musical. But from here on out, it's just kind of winding down. So let's talk a little bit about the ritardando at the end. So if we're going in one, we've got to somehow start thinking in our quarter note. So at 57, I start thinking ba 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 ba. So instead of feeling just in one, get into your quarter note and then just start slowing the quarter note slowly but surely. In the rest bar, 3 from the end, you make sure that even though it's rested, that you're slowing down the quarter note at the exact same speed as you were before. Otherwise, the rest seems too long. Okay, so you training the audience to hear the pace at which you're slowing down, and then you just continue through the rest. So you got to keep that internal clock going. Okay, so right at 57, I'm in 1, but in my brain, I'm thinking about someone tapping on my shoulder, those quarter notes. So here at 57. So if you clap through that, my slow down pace remains the same through the rest. Okay, and just really enjoy that last note. This is also another note where I really think tonguing it is a good idea. Don't slur into it. It's going to sound more legato if you tongue. So those are just a few of my thoughts about this. I know this can be a little bit of a confusing excerpt. I suggest listening to my performance video of it. I kind of show the phrases in context of what I was playing today and explaining today. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the description. If you'd like a free lesson, feel free to contact me. I'm happy to work with you. So I hope you have a wonderful audition, and I hope you really enjoy the journey of learning this piece.